All right. Welcome to episode 29 of the Wyld Farm Family Fun Show. I am Troy Rice, host, co-host Nick Knutson from Wyld Joy. On this show, we talk about everything farm, food, family, and most importantly, we have a ton of fun, especially with Nick in the kitchen. He gets a little crazy. Sometimes he throws on pink cutoff shirts and glasses while he's cooking. We never know what to expect from Nick. Even his dishes and his recipes have crazy names. But we have a blast on this show. But most importantly, we always try to bring on some amazing guests from all walks of life to share about how they got to where they are in life, what they're doing today to help you and share value with you. And then most importantly, give you something to gain. And that's what the show's all about. So the fun at the end is definitely in the kitchen with kids, with food. That's what we care about. But we also love all of our guests. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy Tuesday, everyone. And I am doing great, brother. How are you tonight? And what is a check-in and fun story from the Rice household that you could share with us?
Let's see. Well, no sprinkler trampolines this week so far, but I've been getting out there on my ripstick though. And speaking of ripsticks, you owe me a ripstick.
I do. I owe you a ripstick challenge. You're absolutely right, my friend. And as soon as I am back in Minneapolis, I'm going to be on it, practicing, and we're going to have a ripstick in the kitchen challenge. So we're going to make it work somehow, but we're going to do it.
And Nick shared some awesome pictures with me lately. He's in Nashville. Tell me about your weekend, man. That looked pretty fun.
Yeah. So, I've been trying to immerse myself here in Southern culture a little bit, at least Southern cooking. So, I ripped up, I'm trying to work on a cornbread recipe that is, gluten-free, dairy-free, which I'm coming along very well. So maybe one of these evenings or one of these shows, we're going to dive into a little cornbread that you can make at home. And then I've just been on Sundays, I love doing brunch. So we had I came up with a cornbread eggs Benedict with sausage and hollandaise sauce. So, just trying out some new things so it's been really fun to, just get into some of the Southern cooking and Southern culture here. It is hot, it is humid, but it is fun. So
awesome, man. I can't wait to try that cornbread.
Yeah.
I mentioned gluten and dairy and all that. Well, we always have those conversations with our kids, but we were talking about gluten and dairy the other day because I just wanted the kids to know what it was, not necessarily to be anti or whatever, but at least understanding where it is. And now Kellen's the extreme, man. Like he shows up for breakfast. I'm like, what do you want for breakfast, man? He's like, nothing with gluten in it. I'm like, okay, buddy, nothing with gluten. You got it. But even so today you said fun too. And I always do a little challenge with them. So I made Trevin catch 50 baseballs in a row without dropping them. And then he got to have a treat like ice cream, and same with Kellen. And Kellen's like, Dad, I don't want ice cream. That's dairy. So what else can I have? I'm like, buddy, you are crazy. I love you on the health kick, but maybe it's on me as a parent. I'm doing a bad job of telling him it's moderation, and he doesn't have to be so anti on everything.
Well, kids, once you kind of get something in your head as a kid, I remember it's just like, we were talking backstage with Denise, and she's like, yeah, my son just wanted to come home and get his workout on. And it's just like, once you get your mindset on something, it's just like, go, go, go. So,
yeah,
but I maybe eventually we could do, I've made some homemade coconut ice cream. So I just have to get my homemade ice cream maker. So.
No, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I guess the positive out of all that is they're listening, right?
Yeah.
As parents, we just hope they're listening. So
not too much though. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, all right. Well, excellent, man. Thanks for sharing about those pictures, and hope you're enjoying your time. And
yes,
for those of us that are listening to us for the first time today, or will catch this on the podcast, Nick's actually home based in Minnesota, but he is frequently in Nashville and pursuing potentially living in Nashville. And so that's on Nick's radar. But without further ado, I would love to bring up our guest for tonight, Denise Walsh. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, everyone. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. So Denise is kind of a neighbor of mine. We are friends in this space. Our kids go to similar schools. But I actually first met Denise with an opportunity to be on her podcast and all the awesome stuff that she does for her community of people. She's a proud mom, a wife to two boys, or a mom to two boys, a successful entrepreneur and author, a fitness enthusiast, and most importantly, you are always out there on social media giving tremendous value to people to get them what I would call getting them to where they should be in life, but they just haven't gotten to that point yet, or they're self-sabotaging probably themselves. And so welcome to this show, and I can't wait to dig in with you.
Yay. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, thank you, Denise. So we like to start every show with a little segment called "Where Are You From?" and what's a fun fact about you?
Okay, where am I from? I grew up in Troy, Michigan, and now live in Grand Rapids area. And a fun fact about me. Well, what do I always use in those games? You know, two truths and a lie. One fact about me that might surprise you is that when I was a freshman in college, I got an eyebrow ring. And I called my parents and I said, "Are you sitting down?" And then I said, "I'm not pregnant, but I did get my eyebrow pierced." And they were like, "Okay." And it was actually super cute. I had a little blue ball, but it didn't last too long.
What inspired you to pierce your eyebrow, though?
It was never a dream. I don't know. One of my friends was getting her belly button pierced, and I said, "I'm not going to do that, and I don't want a tattoo, but who knows?" Yeah. It's like the first week of school.
You know, being a dad to a new daughter, I could appreciate an eyebrow ring versus telling me that you're pregnant. So. We'll hang on that positive for sure.
At that time, I was already a salesperson. Like, all right, Dad, sit down. It's not what it could be, but or what you're probably thinking, but it's
grab a warm drink.
Yeah.
Or stiff.
So you've done amazing things in your life. You are doing amazing things in your life. But where did it all start for you? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I actually I feel like my story kind of catapulted or started off in high school when we did home repair ministry with my church. We would go on service mission trips every year. And I remember going into my senior year, for some reason, I just noticed North Carolina blue all of the time. I didn't know anyone in North Carolina. I just noticed that North Carolina blue. I don't know if like the boy I had a crush on had a North Carolina hat or what it was, but like I just noticed it. And my youth group leader said, "Where should we go on our next trip?" And she had this whole list. And it said one of them was Asheville, North Carolina. And I said, "We should go there," because it just had been everywhere in my world at that time. Well, we went there, and I ended up going back for 2 summers to be a camp counselor. And I started, I didn't think that was on accident. You know what I mean? I paid attention to the fact that I noticed, like, I was led there in a sense. And we did home repair ministry, think drywall and painting and roofing. They called me Diesel because we would carry shingles up ladders. And then I decided it was a bit too, laborish for me. And I wanted to just love people. So I started looking around for camps that were just loving kids and hanging out and playing and having fun without all the physical labor. And again, it was one of those God things. I just kept asking, and I interviewed at a few places. It wasn't the right fit. And then all of a sudden I got an email that said, "Our job is to love foster kids." And I spent the next 2 summers in New York City working with New York City foster kids. And then that led to getting my master's in psychology, which led to my first job, which led to then being an entrepreneur because I got burnt out very quickly at that job. And I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. but I've been able to use all of that experience to work with people that I know are hungry to learn and grow, and in a space that can actually help them.
Amazing. Yeah. And I could see how that transition to psychology happened, right? Because you had the mindset to help people back then and behavioral wise, I'm sure. So,
yeah. And I saw these kids, I mean, they came to the camp with their head down and their guard up, and they didn't know how awesome they were, and I came in with like, all this hope and excitement and joy and energy. And I felt like I could see them 3 steps ahead of where they could see themselves. And through the summer, we saw them blossom, do high ropes course and challenge themselves and grow in confidence and things. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to see people 3 steps ahead of where they are and then help them to get there themselves.
That is awesome. So how did you make the cut over from psychology? Because I can't remember if you told me how many years you spent. Was it 10 years or so that you're in psychology?
I was at community mental health for about 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And how did you decide to just make that transition?
Yeah. I mean, you don't just like decide, I guess. It's like a journey, but we started in our company. So we were an internet marketing company, and we met our friends who were the owners of the company in our small group at church. And we thought, well, if we're ever going to do something like this, to know the ownership and to, be this close to corporate and to feel like this trust of foundation, we might as well. And I can tell you, my husband was the one that really drove us. He was a burnt out aerospace engineer. And so it sounds cool, but he was working in cubicle land with grouchy old men. And, we both were at this place where we were like, this isn't it. Like I knew what it was like to love what I was doing. I had experienced that before. And now I'm at a job where I'm living for the weekends. I'm working with people that didn't really want help in a system that couldn't really help them. And all of these dreams and goals and ambitions that I had started to shrink. And I started thinking things like, well, I guess this is being an adult. This is what happens when you're an adult. You have a job you hate for 30 years and then you retire. Like, I guess this is life. But there was a piece of me that was like, no. That's not, I don't want that to be my story. I know what it's like to love what I'm doing. I need to figure out how to find that again, and I call that finding my spark. And we all have that choice, right? Where we can stay where we are, even if we don't like it, just because we know the paperwork, or we figure out a way to like go light that spark again. And so when we met our friends and we started working on this new venture, which we could do on the side, right? We could do it at nights and weekends. And we didn't have to, black and white it. We could really start growing this on the side. And my husband started to see the vision as well. And he went from aerospace engineer to digital marketer. And I went from, clinical psychologist to team trainer, builder. and eventually we went to this place where we were able to quit our jobs, and we've been full-time for over a decade. But I can tell you the identity transition is probably the how it goes, right? We were making money when we quit. We were making more than we were making more in our side hustle than we were in our current jobs. So, but we still had fear. It doesn't go away. But it was when I realized that this was helping more people than I ever could at my other job, that I could do this, that I could experience success here, that I personally could thrive in this new environment, that we made the change.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you see the psychology aspect kind of just flip towards more of you helping people create their journey versus just kind of helping them manage their behaviors? I don't know if that's correct in my thinking of psychology.
It definitely, people would say, do you still use your degree? You're like, every day.
Yeah.
When I'm working in the mental health field, I have to cast vision that life can be better.
Yes.
I know you feel depressed right now. I know that you're feeling in crisis and in chaos, but I've seen people just like you go through these steps and experience another side. And so I was always casting vision in therapy anyway, like you can have a life you love. I know you can, like, let's work through this and that kind of thing. And so when I got to working with my team, I'm working with new entrepreneurs who are scared out of their mind. They don't know what to do. They're experiencing fear, but they know that they want life to be different too. And so I was able to say, all right, new distributor, you are afraid. I totally get it. But I've seen people just like you do these steps and come out on the other side and thrive. And so it really blended well. And now I'm kind of expanded my coaching and offer a lot of different types of group coaching and one-on-one coaching and services to people who are like, I don't want to be here anymore, but I don't quite know how to get to there. And that's kind of what I do.
That's awesome. So what do you see as like the top 3 things that stop people from really getting to where they want to be? Because I would imagine, like you mentioned entrepreneurs mostly, but I'd say anybody, like even if you're in a corporate job and you're looking to just find passion and grow yourself in that, like there's always like these handful of things that just stop people. Mm-hmm. What have you learned in your experience in that and working with people? Like, what are some top things?
I work with a lot of people who feel stuck. You know, they're just like, I know I this is what they tell me. All I know is I don't want to be here, but I don't quite know what to do about it. And so I teach what I call the dream life pathway: head, heart, feet. So head is all about clarity. What do you want? What do you want next? Mindset, retraining your brain to focus on what you want, all of that kind of stuff. Heart is all about life purpose. And what you want is connected to your life purpose, like game on. Nobody can tell you no. This is also even emotional freedom. We do a lot of forgiveness work here because you cannot create when you're emotionally 3 steps behind. And then feet is all about action, time management, skill set. Sometimes we do need to Google, how do you do a Facebook ad? Like we need to learn new skills. But what I find is when people are stuck, something is off. So they either don't know what they want, they don't believe they can get it, or they don't really know how, and they need to level up their skills or rearrange their calendar, put their new goal as priority and things like that. And so oftentimes when you're in alignment, you know what you want, you believe you can get it, and you have your game plan. And that's an identity shift. Just like I kind of mentioned, I went from clinical psychologist to entrepreneur. I would, at the beginning of my business, I'd say, I'm a clinical psychologist who happens to own a business. And eventually I had to say, I'm a business owner. I also happen to be a psychologist. But that identity shift is really important, because when you know that this is what you're supposed to do, or you feel good and excited about it, and you're really connected to the work that you're doing, like time goes by fast. No one can tell you no, because you're just on your path. And I feel like that identity shift is what I help people really do, kind of step into who they were created to be and support them as they blossom.
Oh, beautiful. I mean, as you're talking, like the one piece that resonated with me, like in the jump to entrepreneurship, was forgiveness. I never actually forgave myself for thinking that I could do it, or thinking that what I could create is capable, like valuable to other people. And some days I still go through that forgiveness process. Well, and then what I've noticed, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention too, I had a betrayal that had nothing to do with my business, and it still impacted my business. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it doesn't even seem connected, but it absolutely is. And so those things that keep coming up or keep stirring up will continue until we take full action on it and really work to release it. But I learned a lot of that the hard way, because I was thinking it wasn't connected when really it absolutely was.
Yeah, and so as like an actionable thing, do you kind of get people to be vulnerable about that? Because they have to kind of be open about it with themselves first, right?
Yeah. So one of the exercises we do within my programs is we write a letter to guilt. So guilt is when you feel like you did not live up to your own expectation. An example of that is my book, Design Your Dream Life, took a year longer than expected, because I worked with a designer who came out with a product that I couldn't print, and I had to redo it, thousands of dollars later and a year of my time. I learned the hard way. And so I was beating myself up about that. I can't believe I'm so dumb. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Do I know what I'm doing? All this stuff. And then I had to forgive myself that I never did a book before. I didn't know what questions to ask, and so absolutely. And so one is to guilt. And then we also write a letter to resentment. And that is when someone else does not live up to your own expectation. And that's really where we get to release and just say, they did the best that they could with the information they had at that time. And now that I know better, I can choose to have them in my life or not.
Yeah.
And we can set boundaries there. But those exercises alone are the most powerful pieces of the program and the ones I get the most feedback on.
Okay. And like the number one thing that kind of popped up in my mind there was like support system. So I know like you're that support system, but do you kind of coach them through having that support system surround them too, like friends or other people that are like-minded?
Yeah. We do a lot of this in group settings because then they'll partner up to read the letters and communicate with me directly, but then they also have kind of the love and validation of the other people in the group too. But yes, one of the sections really is, all right, now who do you really want in your corner? Because we get to choose that. Yes. And we can take a step back and say who in my life is adding value and lifting me up, or at least supporting me in my dreams, and who's adding drama. And we get to make those choices.
Yes. Nick, did you have a question?
I do have a question. Denise, thank you for sharing all of this. Like, I love the guilt letter. I love the resentment letter idea. I'm curious if what you have observed, you mentioned that the number one thing that you hear is people feel stuck. So what have you observed that is the source of people feeling stuck? Like, what needs to be removed, or what is the cause of someone being stuck?
It's usually because they've done what other people want them to do for a very long time. And they haven't really asked themselves the questions, what do I want? And it can sound like a selfish question to ask, but really when we're thriving as individuals, we're thriving as a family, And so they either don't know what they want, they really have, or they say, how many times people will say, oh, I want to go do this, but then their heart goes, yeah, right. So then they don't take action on anything. And so usually it's either relationship drama, it's jobs that they feel stuck in because they're, it's a paycheck. At least they know the paperwork. It feels comfortable, but it's certainly not filling their soul. And then with all of the stress of family and schools and even loneliness, really, especially over this past year, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't really have any friends. I don't really have any outlets, and I don't know what to do about it. So it's a matter of asking. I mean, one of our other exercises that we do a lot of is like we make people, I stare at them or their partner stares at them and we say, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then we make them, we don't make them do anything, but they write them down. But what happens is when you ask yourself that question, dreams start to bubble up. And most of the time we don't create that space to allow that connection with ourselves and allow those dreams to bubble up. And once we have those dreams bubble up, then we can say, oh, you want to take your dad to Ireland? Let's put it on the calendar. You want to do a fitness show? Let's put it on the calendar. Then you can start really putting pen to paper and making some changes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy nowadays to just distract yourself, right? And I would imagine like where you're getting at with like people that used to go to an office that maybe had to work from home because of COVID, they probably weren't feeling happy, but they at least felt an outlet if they could go to the office and they could hang out with a couple people, knowing that when they got home, they still felt the same way. Like they never escaped their true feelings, but they had an outlet. And when you take away that outlet, then they're kind of left in a room to ask themselves those questions, but then they don't.
Yeah. And we're not taught necessarily how to, I want to say as entrepreneurs, I was taught along the way to outsource things that do not need to be me.
Yes.
You know, I was taught to get help. I was taught to expand. As a mom, I was never really taught how to ask for help and how to outsource things that didn't need to be me. So a lot of us take on everything, you know, and then we've got 18 plates going in the air, and they're all falling, and we don't really know how to pick them up. And it's because we have too many things we're saying are a priority, and they're not. We really can only focus on 1 to 3 things at a time and make progress in them. And so some things need to be stopped. Like when we started our business, we stopped volleyball. We stopped being youth group leaders. We stopped some of those things to put focus on this new goal. Sometimes it needs to be outsourced. Get help with cleaning. You know, how much would it really cost to have someone clean your house once or twice a month, and then reverse engineer that and ask for help, because a lot of people are just trying to do it all on their own.
Yes. I jokingly, well, it's now a joke now with my brother-in-law and my wife, but they have a person come and clean their house weekly, and then also do like their yard and all that. And, you know, before I went down the entrepreneur route, I had like this pride, right? Like, well, I'm going to do that myself, or I'm going to do the yard myself. Like, that's me, and I need to put the work in. But in all honesty, like time is super valuable, and we never get that back. And so I think when you truly focus on what really matters, then you can find out how to leverage the other areas to get them done.
My husband we'd have the neighbor kid mow our yard, and I was like embarrassed, like, you can't mow our yard. What the heck? He goes, it's going to take me an hour and a half to mow the yard, or I could make us money in that hour and a half. What would you prefer? And I was like, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that neighbor kid gets to make some money and learn.
And then that's the economy, right?
Absolutely. Very cool. So I want to dig into fitness here too, but one last question around this is, I'm going to chat in your website and how people can connect with your programs and your book and all that. But before they would do that, is there like one thing that you could share with somebody to just get them one step towards where they need to be, to make them feel like they're on their path towards their purpose?
Yeah. I have a freebie that they can download. It's called the Dream Board Brainstorming Kit. And it is really where I would start creating this. Just create the space to ask yourself some of these questions. What do I want for my home life? What do I want in my career? What do I want for my health? What do I really want? And so it creates the space for you to take a look at all 7 areas of life, to dream a little and say, what would my dream vacation be? What would my dream work schedule be? What would my dream, what would it be? And give yourself that space, write it all down, and then create a dream board for this next year. There's something that happens when you put pen to paper and you get it out of your head and out of your heart and in front of you, and your eyes can see it. It's super cool. It's called the reticular activating system, and it's a piece of your brain that's your brain's filter. And all of a sudden you start seeing those things everywhere. My son tonight, he said, Mom, isn't it weird? When I start thinking about red, I see red everywhere. He goes, there's a red car, and there's a red, and it's a reticular activating system filtering out what it deems important to you. So I want to have influence on what my reticular activating system is showing me. So I want to have I have my affirmations everywhere. I have my dreams everywhere. I say that I am brainwashing my children to believe they can do anything they want by having all these sticky. But that's a place to start. Just really start to ask yourself, what do I really want? What's important to me? And then you can start crafting a life around it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I just recently picked up a book. You probably love this one too. That talks about how your brain creates reference frames, which is basically what you're saying, which is our brains model the world that we want it to be. And so that's where creation is made. And so that's exactly what you're doing there. You're creating those reference frames for people, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, and Nick, you asked kind of what holds people back. One of the things I've noticed too is that self-sabotage is a big kicker. And it's really where self-sabotage is when we snap back to what we believe is normal. So if we believe that being overweight is normal and we start to be healthy, we'll snap back to what we believe is normal. If we believe that being in debt is normal, then even if we're starting to make money, we will spend it or get more, like we just kind of always, we go back to what our subconscious believes is safe and normal because it wants us to fit into the tribe. And so part of the program is figuring out what you want, but the other part is to level up what I call level up your normal. So instead of our normal being McDonald's, our normal is like black bean almond flour brownies, right? Because we're going to snap back to normal. That's just how it goes. So we might as well level up our normal and reprogram our subconscious to connect with a new tribe that we actually really want. Because its goal is to keep us safe. It's not trying to hurt us. It's not, it's not trying to like steer us wrong, but it doesn't care if we're happy. It just wants us to fit into the tribe it believes it belongs to, so we can impact that too.
Wow, that's really powerful.
It's super fun.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't want to. I do want to get into the fitness. I'm self-reflecting that like I've always when I don't think I'm very good at dreaming. And this is probably for a conversation outside of here, but it just whenever someone like, and maybe it's my programming, but like I just like every time like in personal development programs, like think about what you want or dream about what you want. I'm like, I mean, for me, like I'll just be super candid. It's just like, I'm a man in sobriety, and I'm like my dream is to die like my last sober breath. Like that's really all I got. And like the rest of it's like, well, I live one day at a time, and it's like every time I plan something, it's like things change, right? And so I'm kind of programmed to just sort of live one day at a time and just make it to the end, being sober. So I know it's probably limited, but that's where I struggle with dreaming, because it's just like I put a cap on it, I think, myself. So to your point, I probably self-sabotage myself, what goes back to being safe. So, but anyway, that's what I got.
Well, congratulations. And I do think that sometimes people think the dream has to be like Oprah, or write a book or run a marathon or do something kind of, big. Sometimes my goal is to take my son out to Wendy's, just the two of us, or go get a burger or sit at a like sometimes the dream is really just connection with people we love. Like it doesn't have to be big and bold and crazy. It just has to be intentional.
Yeah.
And so for you to say I'm living every day intentionally sober, that's awesome. And you're doing it every day. And the more you do that, the more you'll be able to continue to grow, because you'll trust yourself and you'll say, I want to move to Nashville. Okay. I'm in Nashville. Here we go. All right. I don't know how. We don't need to know the steps in between.
Yeah.
We just need to have a vision of what we really want life to look like. And eventually we go like 10 years from now, you go, oh my gosh, I'm in Nashville living my dream. How the heck this happened?
We will see.
Good luck.
Will be revealed.
Speaking life over
More
you.
will be revealed. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate that acknowledgement and that affirmation. So I appreciate your words there, Denise.
Beautiful, Nick. All right. So fitness.
Yeah.
I know recently you did I believe it's called a bikini bodybuilding competition. But let's backtrack, because I think you've done one in the past, right? Too. So walk us through that. Like the first one that you did, your fitness regimen, how you're able to accomplish that this time around, and just we're looking for the inspiration through all of that, because it's really awesome. So.
Well, I did one in 2015. We hit the top of our company, and you're like, woohoo, celebration. And then I quickly said, okay, what's next? If I don't have a goal, I get really bored. So I did set a fitness goal, because what I realized is you can have your dream life. Like you can thrive in all areas of your life, but you don't typically work on them all at the same time. So I was head down in my business for a good amount of years, created momentum. And when I looked up, I was like, all right, what's next? And so I thought, let's challenge myself in a new way. So I did a pretty strict 6-month plan with a coach back in 2016, and did my first bikini show. And like, it was insane. It was insane. And I said, I will never do that again, because that was like very hard. And what I really want is to be a fit mom. You know, I want to live a healthy, balanced life, and I want to eat clean habitually. And I don't want it to be hard. I want it to be what I want. You know, like, it's not about the discipline, it's about desire. Like, I want it to be easy for me to drink a gallon of water a day. I want it to be easy. So I have to do it long enough for it to become habitual. So then it's weird if I don't, you know? So the first show really took me to extremes, and I kept some of those habits, drinking water and that kind of thing. But then over the years, you know, quarantine hit and I was on a year-long staycation. So I decided, all right, I needed to do it again. And this time really keep the habits. And this time I can tell you it was not as extreme, meaning I felt good the whole time, which is really important. You don't want to look good and feel like junk. But it's whole foods. It's all food. I mean, it's cardio and weights, but I can tell you the thing that actually changes the most is the food. And it really is just clean, whole foods, drinking water, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, and you know, food you can pick off the ground, and it was good. It was good. I got in routines and habits that I'm going to be able to stick with, and that's what's most important to me.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to actually show a picture of the latest competition that you did, just so people can see how awesome.
It was cool.
So just bear with me for a second here.
It was pretty darn crazy. Those pictures were motivating.
All right. Here's Denise in the latest show, which is amazing, right? I mean, and hopefully you don't mind me sharing this, because I think you share on social, but you just turned 42 recently, right? Mm-hmm. So just amazing. So that you have to look at that and say, wow, that's an amazing accomplishment. A lot of fun, I imagine.
Well, and the lifeguard was you know, from my camp days.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But it was power. Now you really only look like that for a few days, right? You eat a tomato and all your water comes back. But I can tell you, it was really cool to stick with the plan and see the plan work. And I think that's with a lot of things. When you know what you want, you believe that you can do it, and you've got a plan, you stick with it long enough to create momentum and to create that consistency, and amazing things happen.
Incredible.
That's amazing.
And like you said,
congratulations on that journey. That all of that, I'm sure the discipline and the diet, the fitness regime like that, and to squeeze that all in, you know, with family and still your business. And I know you said that you had to sort of compartmentalize, like, this is what I was going to focus on, and do this. And I let go of, you know, some of my other responsibilities. So congratulations on your journey. And I'm glad to hear that your habits are sticking with you this time. What changed for those habits to stick with you this time? Like, what was needed within you, or what was needed to change in order for those habits to stick this time?
Well, I think a few things. Number one, I lived life a little bit more while doing it. Whereas before it was pretty black and white, and it felt on again, off again. You know, I'm on plan, I'm off plan. And this time I went on a girls' weekend and stuck to my plan the whole time. And I went out to eat, and I just learned to ask for a lean protein and veggies, no salt and no butter. And people, it was not a big deal at all. You know, so I learned how to live life a little bit more. You know, I brought my air fryer camping with us and made my, you know, fish and chicken in the air fryer. You just learn how to do it within life rather than it being, you know, so extreme that I had to say no to everything for a season. And again, there's a time and place for that too. But this time I really was intentional about saying, I don't want to go on again, off again. I want to live a clean life and you know, make recipes and learn these things that I can do to keep it sustainable and not so extreme.
Yeah. And I think some of it comes back to what you said earlier, which is what do you want versus what other people want? Because that's what we feel like when we go on these vacations and everything, is that socially we feel like others want us to have a beer, right? Or drink or eat a certain food. And in that moment, it's intentional to what you want, because that's what really matters. So,
well, you learn too that it's about the conversation. You know, it's about the time together. I could be the DD the whole weekend and it was great. You know, nobody cared one bit if I had a drink or not. And so I learned really that it's about the time, not what we're eating and what we're drinking. And it really was helpful for me to see. We had a birthday party here for my 40th birthday and I didn't have cake and nobody cares. You know what I mean? I think so much time we put pressure on ourselves and think that all of these societal pressures, when really, why? What's the most important? What do we really want?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. I'm grateful for this. I love having these conversations with you. Any chance I have to talk to you. I know we have a lot in common, not only with the way that we lead our lives, hopefully, but with parenting and things like that, I know. And so truly grateful to have you on tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Denise.
So we always invite our guests to stick around and watch Nick in the kitchen if you have time. No pressure. But when we slide Nick over, you can stick around, watch him, ask him questions, poke fun at him if you want. So whatever you want. If you see him flinging something around and it looks suspect, you can do that. But it's all in good fun. And so thanks again for joining us. We did chat in Denise's website, so you can check out what she's doing. You can connect with her. Please check out her books too, The Dream Life, and I believe you did a Dream Life journal, additional book too, to help people out. So I encourage you to do that. And then I also mentioned that she has a podcast. And so if you are a podcast listener, please go out and check out Dreamcast. She's got some amazing guests on there and talking about very similar things in other people's journeys and getting them to where they want to be. So thank you again. And I'm going to kick it over to Nick in the kitchen.
Let's see your recipe.
Well, thank you again, Denise, for just sharing so many great insights and for just opening up and sharing more about your story. It was truly an honor and a blessing to have you on the show tonight. And so in honor of, a lot of the things of what you talked about, we're going to dream up a soup that we would, we'll dream up and then we're going to cook a soup that that came to me. I didn't make this up, but it's called a Vichyssoise soup. So it's a French soup, and it's a lot more complicated sounding than it is to actually make. So let's just get that clear. So it's a Vichyssoise soup. It's a potato and leek soup that you actually have the option to serve chilled. So it's a really wonderful summer, kind of end of spring into summer soup that we can dive into. And I know, like with CSAs coming in, like we've got different ingredients coming in, and sometimes we don't know what to do with all of it. And for this specific recipe, we're actually going to use radish greens along with the recipe. So we're sort of thinking about total utilization of everything that kind of comes into the door with food. And but before we begin, I did want to just share something that I had been kind of dreaming of. I've always dreamed of creating a shirtless chef calendar of me shirtless in the kitchen, kind of rivaling like the lifeguard bikini look. But maybe one of these days I'll get to it. So
see, you dream. That's a dream.
But I would want all the proceeds to go to something fun, right? Like something that, I don't mean it to be a vain thing. It's kind of a fun moniker that I have. So
if our audience wants to catch Nick in action on that, we did an episode that was how you can do more in the kitchen with less was truly focused on having no utensils or having minimal utensils and still making it work in the kitchen. But Nick absolutely took full adequate services of the No Shirt Chef show. So if you really want to check out Nick before that calendar, check back to the episode.
There you go. Yep. If anybody's listening. Okay. So what we're going to need to kind of get things going, the major pieces of equipment will be, we'll need a larger stock pot. We'll obviously need our cutting board. And we're going to need some kind of blender or something because we're going to want to emulsify the soup at the very end. So those are our three main tools. And we're also going to need a vegetable peeler and a knife. But our ingredients that we're going to be working with, I went to the farmer's market today. I got some leeks. I got some fresh Yukon Gold potatoes, some fresh radishes. I'm loving the South because everything, even tomatoes, are in season right now. And I would have to wait till August if I was in Minneapolis. So it's really exciting. And then we're going to top it off at the end with a medley of basil and parsley and cilantro. So we're just going to mince those up. So first thing we're going to want to do, so how it's going to look tonight, just so we know where we're going, I'm going to get like the first couple steps going, and then I'm going to complete the dish because I've already gotten some of it all the way cooked through. So so this will be a dairy-free, gluten-free, and a gluten-free, dairy-free. And you could also obviously use sweet potatoes too. I guess then that you'd be kind of, keeping in vein with more of like the paleo diet, but I'm not so concerned about that. So, all right. So we got to peel our potato. So you're going to take that vegetable peeler, just peel the outside layer off. Kind of fun. Maybe this is where you get your kids to help you out in the kitchen.
Yeah, sharp objects, right? Brings them to the kitchen.
Sharp objects, yes. And the peeler's pretty safe, right? So, I mean, you can still, I've nicked myself a couple times on the peeler, but for the most part, I almost did it right there. They're pretty safe. So, and you can go, there's no rush, right? So, we'll discard those peelers. I always like to kind of keep a little discard bowl close to my station. Sorry, and then always for safety, I have a slip-resistant mat underneath my cutting board. So when I'm about to cut, I am not going to let this thing slide around. So pinch the bottom end of that knife, and I'm just going to slice, make some discs here. And the thing about this soup, so if you want your potatoes to cook a little bit quicker, you'd want to cut smaller dices. If you're not so concerned about the time, then you can cut them as big as you want. But I want these to cook relatively fast, so I'm going to cut them really like 1/2 inch size, so that when they when I saute them up and then add the cooking liquid, they will get soft much quicker. If I left them whole or bigger pieces, it's going to take a lot longer for the recipe and the potatoes to get to the level where I can emulsify them. All right, so there we go. We've got our potatoes done. I'm going to go ahead and start my burner. I'm going to put it on medium heat. And then I'm going to transfer these to a separate bowl. And we're going to go to the leek. So leeks are kind of it's sort of if you never used a leek or are unfamiliar, it's very similar to kind of like an onion in terms of flavor and smell. But it's also kind of got, it's a little bit more like lettuce as far as its its texture, or like a real hard like texture of lettuce. But like onions are really hard to break down. Leeks are a little bit more delicate. Troy, do you have any insights on the leek?
Not much, man. Like you said, so leeks are often used in soups, I would say, which is probably why Nick's using it today. But we use them on our salads a lot. You can slice them up and put them on a salad. Really depends on the dressing, right? That's Nick's comment, which is the dressing makes everything happen.
Yeah,
so.
the sauce is where it's at. So with the leek, there's just a one little like woody stem at the bottom. So if you see that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out, sort of like a little bit of a V, because that's going to be woody and stemmy, and I don't want that in my soup. So, and then I'll discard that. And Troy, you're right. They're great for salads. They're great for soups. They're great for even dressing. So leeks are very versatile. So I'm just going to give this a rough chop. And one thing that I sort of forgot to mention here is that we want to rinse it, which I totally forgot to mention. So what I'm going to do, since I forgot, I'm going to go rinse it. So I have like a little metal strainer, and I'm just going to go run some water over it, because leeks can they have all those little like flary layers to it, and dirt can kind of get in there. So we want to make sure that we rinse it. I apologize for kind of overstepping that step.
Now I know that ramps can be interchangeable with leeks too. So if
Yes.
you have ramps from a market, then you can use them same as you do for leeks.
Yeah, great point, Troy. So I'm going to use some ghee for my cooking oil tonight. You could use avocado oil. You could use, if you were not caring about the gluten-free, you could use butter, olive oil, whatever you'd like. So I'm going to add those potatoes into the bottom of my stock pot. I'm going to bring my leeks over, add those. And then I'm going to go ahead and add, so for the recipe, it's going to be about 2 cups of water, 2 cups of stock. I'm just going to go ahead and add that into my stock pot, just so that we don't get, we want to add that liquid very quickly, because we don't want the potatoes to burn on the bottom. So we want to add that liquid really quick. So what's going to happen now that those are, the potatoes and the leeks are in the pot, I'm going to let that come to a boil. Then I'm going to reduce the heat and let it simmer and cover it. So it will probably be about 15 to 20 minutes until those potatoes are tender with a fork, that you would know that they're ready to cut the heat. And then when you cut the heat, you're going to add your radish greens. So you just throw those in. And what's going to happen next is we're going to bring in already a chilled, unprocessed soup. So I have let this cook earlier. I put it in the fridge, and so this is a unprocessed chilled vichyssoise. And so what's going to happen now? You can do this when it's hot, but since it's cold, it's going to be ready for serving. So I'm going to use a ladle, and I forgot one ingredient. Okay. No, I didn't. Where is it? There it is. All right. So we're going to need a little bit of some kind of dairy substitute. So I'm loving this oat milk stuff. You could use coconut milk. which is fine. I love that this has a bit more of a neutral taste. When I put coconut milk and stuff to it, there's still a little tinge of coconut flavor to it. And I kind of want to keep this like a little bit classic. So we could go with a little bit more of a Thai Vietnamese spin on this as well, adding some fish sauce or adding some ginger even to this. But I want to keep this pretty classic, pretty French in its foundation. So I'm going to transfer a couple scoops of the soup that is not processed into my mixer here. Don't get too confident with adding everything in there. I'll just tell you that right now. So I'm going to add just a smidge of the oat milk. And I'll add some to the next. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to cover this up. Let's hopefully this doesn't get all over my computer. And then we're just going to emulsify it for 10 to 15 seconds. And I'm going to pause here. The reason I'm letting it go so long is because this really needs to be a very fine soup, in my opinion. So we don't want any kind of, like, it's okay if there's chunks in there, but if I just want to kind of keep the chunks to a minimum. So I'm going to do it one more time. All right. So that looks pretty good. What I want to do from here is taste check it. Check for salt. Okay, could use a little bit of salt. And you could actually pour this into a separate bowl because we still have a little bit left to do, but we're not going to do that. So just look at how nice that looks. Really fine, silky. In texture. And then what I would do, if it needs salt, I'm just going to salt the top and then kind of mix it in. So those radish greens in there are going to add just a smidge of bitterness to it. And sometimes when you add two bitters, it has a little bit of a sweetness to it. So there's a little sweetness to this Vichyssoise soup. So we just want to make sure that we get that right salt balance. And again, that's to your liking. Yep, that's where it's at. All right. So to finish this off, I would transfer this to a bowl. And then what I would do from here is we want to garnish it here. So I'll just take that cilantro and that parsley, grab my knife, be careful here. And voila. So hold that up high, add that garnish at the end, and you have yourself a nice, summery, silky Vichyssoise soup to enjoy for lunch or dinner. One of the things I was thinking about doing this would just be to grill up a skirt steak or something and serve that on the side with this. So okay, there you go. That's the Vichyssoise soup. Again, it's much more complicated to say than it is to actually make. So
that's great, man. And you said that one's cold. Would you serve it hot too? Does it matter?
You can. Yes, you have the option to serve it hot. But I was just thinking of recipes since I'm down in the South and it's hot. I was like, what are some things that one could do that isn't necessarily always hot? So on the other hand, eating spicy foods and eating hot foods and hot liquids is actually might be good for you in the heat too. So who knows?
I would probably dash some hot sauce on that for sure.
Yes, that is also an option for you.
And I'll tell you that the oat milk is approved by the kids. I put it on their oatmeal the other day, and I didn't tell them, and just seeing what they would say. And Trevin's our picky eater, and he didn't say anything. So apparently it's super neutral because no one even
knew. Yeah, no, it's good. I like the texture a lot. The flavor's very neutral. So I'm a big fan of that oat milk as far as a really great dairy alternative, and that's what I've been using in the cornbread. So that's what I replaced. I add some apple cider vinegar to this to make it a little bit more cultured, sort of like buttermilk, and I'm using that instead of the buttermilk itself. So
excellent, man.
So very versatile.
Yeah, and I know Denise is appreciative or knows Stephen Cabral, who we're fortunate to have on the show, talked a lot about inflammation. So if you're somebody out there that's wondering why oat milk, why non-dairy, why all that, especially if you're a dairy person, inflammation has been proven to cause many problems within your body. So just something to consider. Of course, every time we talk on this show, we're not trying to advocate against something, but just trying to caution you on what might be causing inflammation in your body, which is causing other things to react. So just a little bit tidbit there.
I have learned that if you don't know if you're inflamed, you probably are. Because when I took out dairy and the first time around, I used to, prior to my first bodybuilding show, I would say I could have an all liquid diet. I could drink water, protein shakes, coffee, and wine. And when I started eating whole foods and I cut out all of the dairy that I had and, cheese really, I dropped fast, and I thought I did not even know how bloated I was. I did not even know how marshmallowy I was until I took that off. And now if I have it, I can feel it swelling, immediately, within a day or so. And so I often say, if you don't know if you're inflamed, you probably are. Because if you're not, you can feel it when it comes.
Yeah, I mean, one test that you could do. So if you're out there trying to wonder, well, how could I build a plan that would get me started towards learning? And my wife and I tried the Whole30 program, and it works for teaching you about who you are and what your body can tolerate. Because you go on a raw food diet and you take out everything, and then you introduce it back. And so if you're a peanut butter eater or dairy or whatever it is, even oatmeal, your body will teach you what it can tolerate. And so if you're looking for anything, that's at least something that we've tried that works. Nick, you're a CrossFit guy. You got any insight on that?
Well, I think what you're saying, Troy, is it's really just I think it's more of a food thing but CrossFit. But I think what I could say is that my body is different than yours. No body is really quite the same. And so I think it really it can be frustrating to just without knowing, to just sort of jump onto an idea without that exploration. So I think it really just is about I think we need to take a bit more ownership of that discovery process and doing something like a Whole30 without just sort of, I'm never going to eat gluten again, without even knowing if your body can necessarily tolerate it or not. And so we got to find these things out before necessarily kiboshing everything, because I can tolerate a little bit of gluten, and it's nice. It's really great every once in a while to have a burger, and I'm okay with that, right? So I was very regimented. I was super strict, for probably 7 years. And I was like, wow, there's so much more that I haven't cooked because I have been so limited. Yeah. So I think that there's just a lot of opportunities out there. as well to not just self-discover, but there could be foods that you're missing that you didn't even know on both sides of it. Like oat milk could be a wonderful dairy like alternative. And on the other side, for me, there could be a wonderful pasta dish in Italy someday for me. Where I wouldn't have even eaten it like 6 years ago. So.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for the amazing soup. We will make sure that we chat that recipe in or provide that to our listeners. I've also added Nick's website. If you're curious, not only does Nick do an awesome job of sharing insights in the kitchen here, but he runs a lot of different programs that you can access from his site and a little bit more intimate on how to navigate the kitchen, what utensils to use, and all that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to check that out. He truly is an awesome person, but a great chef too.
Thank you, Troy. And thank you again, Denise, for being on the show and sticking around. And hopefully this recipe may have inspired your son who just got done doing a bunch of fitness. So
yeah, I'm going to take that recipe for sure. I think that's the thing. The more you start cooking on your own, and when I started making my own foods instead of going to Panera, you realize that there's a lot of options, and I kind of like what I cook now more than a restaurant sometimes. And so I'm always looking for new ideas and recipes. So I'll definitely try that out.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm guilty of that too. It's like it's not just like I can cook it better, but then I'm like, I do the cost breakdown analysis and I'm like, wow, like I just went and spent $50 for this and then or whatever it is. And I'm like, I could have made that for 10.
Yeah, you're also thinking, just move over, people. I'll just take over.
Just get out of my way. No, but no, it is nice. But I think to your point, Denise, it's not always about the outcome of the meal, but it's really about the experience and the conversation. So that's worth the money itself as well. So it's nothing's ever a lost cause. Well,
as someone who grew up, I feel like the kitchen was not the hub of our home. We ate quick foods. And now as a mom, I'm trying to figure out the kitchen thing. So I appreciate your wisdom and knowledge. I'm like, ooh, how is he cutting that up? Tell me more. Yeah.
Well, if you have any other questions, Denise, feel free to reach out. I'd love to share. So happy to help, happy to serve.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody that watched live tonight. I know there are a couple people. Thank you to everybody that's going to listen to this later, not only on YouTube or watch this on YouTube, but also on the podcast. This is on every streaming channel. Of course, you don't get to see Nick in the kitchen or our amazing guests, but you can at least listen to them on the go. So again, we talk about everything here: farm, food, family, and most importantly, fun. And we are grateful for everybody that engages and loves this show. So we will see you next week with a new guest and the same theme of fitness. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.